Hey, welcome to the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. This is another amazing multifamily brief episode. So you'll be hearing me talk for about 8 to 10 minutes. So I've had a lot of calls with a lot of people recently, a lot of people who qualify as aspiring investors. And I actually really enjoy talking with aspiring investors for some crazy reason. But one thing that I've noticed a lot is there's a lot of people who are potential deal finders. And there are not a lot of people who brand themselves as capital raisers. And, when I start looking at things and looking at the deals that people are sending to me, there's quite a big need for capital raising. Okay. So one thing, and I've mentioned this before on the podcast, one thing that I do is I am open to KP opportunities or key principal, loan guarantor, whatever you want to call it. And I take, 3 to 5 calls per week from people who have opportunities either under contract or close to contract. And a common thread among all of these is the people are not prepared to raise capital. Okay. And so I start really thinking about, everyone that I've talked with recently, and most people that I've talked with, their plan for getting in is to start calling brokers and to find a property, find a property that's for sale, and then find some people who can bring capital to the table. But, once again, I think there's 3 deal finders for every one person that thinks that they can go out and start raising capital. And what I would offer up to everybody is you should probably consider raising capital. It's something that when you look at supply and demand, like I said, there's 3 or 4 deal hunters for every one person that's trying to raise capital. But if you can get good at raising capital, if you can start building your network of investors and start bringing in money to different deals, and it doesn't have to be big, it can start small. I talked with one couple recently that, tried their hand at capital raising, and they said, we only raised 200,000. And my response was, that is awesome. I love it. I mean, 200,000 is a good amount for your first raise. Don't worry that you only brought 200,000, use it as a stepping stone towards your next capital raise. But I mean, capital raising is not easy. I think a lot of people are intimidated by it. A lot of people, when you really start thinking about it, I think there's a lot more misgivings and a lot more limiting beliefs around raising capital than there is around finding deals. But what I found is it's actually a lot easier to raise capital than it is to find deals. And when I started, and maybe this will help people, when I started, I had a lot of limiting beliefs. I was active duty in the Marine Corps at the time. My real estate investing experience included 3 single-family investment properties, all 3 of which I bought as personal residences. I kind of had the idea of who's going to invest with me because, look at my history. I've done a handful of single family properties. I had mixed results with them. Fortunately, we made a lot of money when we sold. One of them never cash flowed. But I had the idea that I couldn't raise capital and I wouldn't be able to find people. And besides, I didn't know anybody that had $50,000 available to invest in these properties, because typically we have a $50,000 minimum buy-in. But what I started realizing is the more that I started looking for people who are interested, the more I started finding them, and once again, it's a lot easier, in my opinion, to find one person that is interested and capable of investing $50,000 than it is to find a property that makes sense for you. All right. And not only that, once you find a property to make sense for you, there's a lot of competition out there. There's a lot of other people bidding, and it's hard to get traction in that world. Now, it is also hard to get traction with new investors, and I understand that. But I think the barrier to entry is a lot lower. There's lots of ways where you can position yourself to be able to raise capital from people without a deal. There's a lot of ways that you can position yourself to, get those soft commits without a deal and start building your investor base. All right. A lot of it has to do with choosing your partners carefully. In a lot of cases, I mean, I relied on my mentor quite a bit up front as far as, being able to raise capital, being able to get credibility with brokers. But you can start looking for people that have a little bit of experience that you can rely on their expertise. Okay. So end of the day, I think really what I'm trying to impart, and I'll just say it if it hasn't come out clearly yet, is if you're at all considering capital raising, you might as well. All right. Because if you're on the fence about whether you should capital raise or find deals, if you're new to the market, try your hand at capital raising. Like I said, there's 3 to 4 people looking for deals for every one person that I talk with that's raising capital. All right. So if you can learn how to raise capital, you can make a lot of money raising capital. Okay. Now, obviously, there's the standard disclosures of there are a lot of laws and regulations you need to be aware of if you are raising capital. There's broker dealer laws. There's, the 506B, 506C syndication, or the exceptions to the SEC regulations. But there's a lot of laws that you have to make sure that you're compliant with. So make sure you understand that piece first. And it is somewhat complicated, but make sure you understand that piece first. But we need capital raisers. Every deal that comes to me, it's one of the first questions I'll ask. If it looks like they need a $3 or $4 million raise, one of the first questions I always ask is, what is your plan to raise capital? And as I started in the beginning, when I'm looking over 3 to 5 new deals a week, and 80% of them come to me and say, yeah, we don't know how we're going to raise that money, but we're confident we can do it. That's a problem, and that's something that, if you are well positioned, or if you just want to hustle and bring capital to the table, you can get into a lot of deals just bringing a couple of people that can invest $50,000 each. Anyway, that's it for today. If you want to learn more about, what my offerings are with the Tribe of Titans, oh, by the way, I teach people to raise capital. Let me know. Best way to reach out to me, you can do it on LinkedIn. Just send me a message on LinkedIn saying you're interested in learning more about my program, or send me an email, brian@streamlinecapitalgroup.com. All right. Thanks, guys.
Hey, if you like that episode, make sure you hit that subscribe button. But more importantly, if you haven't joined our multifamily educational community, the Tribe of Titans, yet, you are missing out. So get yourself 30 days free by clicking the link below in the description, or go to thetribeoftitans.info, and we'll see you there.